Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the biggest dumper myths. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details, www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing the biggest dumper myths. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely have heard many things about how your ex is supposedly likely to behave. Now, most of these rumours are actually unlikely, and in today's podcast, I'm going to discuss 3 of the biggest dumper myths. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1, myth number 1, is your ex will forget you. So point number 1 in today's podcast, the first myth we're going to discuss is actually a huge one, and that is the theory that your ex will forget you. Now, depending on who you've listened to or what you've read or what you've watched, this could be after varying amounts of time. But I'm going to focus on one amount of time in particular, which unfortunately lots of dumpies fall into the trap of believing, and that is the thought that your ex will forget you after 30 days, and you need to try and connect with them within this time using something referred to as the 30-day no contact rule. Now, we just need to explain this a little bit because lots of people suggest you implement the no contact rule to increase your chance of getting an ex back. But what you may not realise is that there are many different versions of a no contact rule that you can find online. And I believe that my variety of a rule will actually give you the best possible chance of success, but it is certainly not this 30-day version that I'm going to be speaking about a little more very, very shortly. So if you want to learn about my version of a rule and why I believe it will give you the best possible chance of success, I suggest that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on my playlist entitled The No Contact Rule, and listen to all of the content within this playlist. This will help you fully immerse yourself in my version of the rule. But as I said, my version of the rule is not the 30-day no contact rule. And this suggests that people need to reconnect with their ex within 30 days, else their ex may forget them, else their ex may move on, and things which can really conjure up a sense of nervousness, a sense of desperation and anxiety. What you need to realise is that your ex will never forget you. So it doesn't matter if it is this version of the rule, this 30-day no contact rule you've heard, or maybe you've read something that says, your ex will forget you after 90 days, because that is when habits form and break. Again, that is something that some people put out there. What you need to realise is that a romantic relationship is not something that you can compare to other habits, to other experiences. A romantic relationship is never forgotten. Your ex will never forget you. Even if they were the dumper, even if they ended the relationship, they will not forget you. So it doesn't matter if you don't hear from your ex within 30, 60, 90 days, you still have an opportunity of getting your ex back. Now, that doesn't mean that all of you will. Unfortunately, there is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But if you do enough of the right things, you increase your chance of success. If you do enough of the wrong things, then unfortunately, you decrease that chance. And I believe that using the 30-day no contact rule is actually going to negatively affect your chances. So, what is the 30-day no contact rule? Well, within the 30-day no contact rule, you might actually find some slight variations, but in principle, it is the concept that for 30 days, you do not respond to your ex if you hear from them. And if you don't hear from them, or even if you do, I think is what lots of people say, you wait 30 days and then you reach out. So basically, within 30 days, if you hear from your ex, you don't respond. But whether you do or you don't, after 30 days, that is when you reach out to them. Now, the reason why I don't believe this is going to help you is, firstly, if your ex reaches out to you, I do suggest you respond. Now, of course, you've got to use your common sense. If this is some type of argument, if this is some type of abuse, then maybe you need to use your common sense and think, look, I'm not going to respond. But generally speaking, if your ex-dumper reaches out, it's for one of two potential reasons. Either it's necessary, and therefore I suggest you respond just to be a good human being. And not only that, it will increase your chance of one day reconnecting if you are reasonable. So let's just say your ex reaches out and say, hey, I left my laptop at your house. I need it for work. Can I have it back? I suggest you respond. Okay, if you don't respond, is that really going to help you? Is that really going to increase your chance of reconnecting one day? I think you need to respond. So what happens if it's not necessary? What if it's unnecessary contact? Well, that's even better for you. If you receive contact from your ex that isn't necessary, then that means they're thinking of you, and this is where you can try to grow the conversation and see how things develop. So I certainly don't agree with the thought where some people suggest within 30 days you should ignore your ex. In my opinion, if your ex reaches out, by and large, most of the time, you should respond. Now, what happens if you don't hear from your ex? What happens if 30 days comes and you've not heard from them? Should you reach out to them? In my opinion, no. I think most people, most instances, most situations would benefit from you should only contact your ex again if they contact you first. And this is from a perspective of the dumpee. So if you have been dumped, you should never contact your ex again unless they reach out to you first. That is because you know they're thinking about you. You know you're not bothering them. You know that they are in a position now where they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, and they can begin to miss you because you're not chasing them. Somebody can't miss you if you're always in their life. Somebody can't miss you if they know deep down you're going to reach out after 30 days. So that is why I would say the 30-day no contact rule is not something that I promote. And even if you may see some success stories, I would say it's coincidence. These are situations where reconnection would have taken place anyway. Maybe the dumpee reaches out on 30 days and they reconnect, but what they don't realise is the dumper was about to reach out the day after anyway. Nothing works 100% of the time, nothing fails 100% of the time. You will always find instances where you get success no matter what somebody attempts, but I want to give you the best possible chance of success, not just some randomised hope. And if you want me as your teammate and your coach, then we can take this journey together and I will try my best to increase that opportunity for you. I can't guarantee I'll get your ex back, but what I can say is I will give you the best possible chance. And if you don't get them back, I will help you get into a position where you can be a more attractive version of yourself to get somebody even better into a relationship where you can feel even more fulfilled. Nothing in life can be guaranteed, but if you increase your chances of attracting somebody better than your ex, then surely that's even better for you. If you don't get your ex back, but you find somebody who is a better connection, then you're not going to worry about it. Right now you might be thinking that's impossible, but what I would say, if you become a version 2.0 of yourself, if you improve every single day, then you have a much better opportunity of growing your attraction net and being that better person that attracts better quality individuals. If you want to go on a journey with me, if you want me to be your coach, me to be your teammate, and we will see the best that we can achieve, then go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more details on my audio coaching service where me and you can speak one-on-one. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast, the second myth about the biggest dumper myths. And point number 2 is your ex will be in a new forever relationship very soon. So let's just break that down. Myth number 2 is that your ex, the dumper, very shortly will get into a new relationship which is forever. That is something which scares dumpees. They think, look, the relationship is over. My ex is now going to meet somebody better than me and they're going to live happily ever after. Well, as I've said already in today's podcast, nothing in life is guaranteed. But what I would say is that it's very unlikely that this will happen. And this is down to the fact that finding a long-term compatible partner is very challenging. It's very difficult to find somebody that we can move forward with and live with long-term. So, what would I say to the chances of your ex-dumper meeting somebody new very soon who they decide to get into a forever relationship? I would say it's very, very unlikely. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. But is it unlikely? Absolutely. Very, very unlikely. I see that when people break up from long-term relationships, if they get into a new relationship with somebody else, somebody new, it's much more likely to be much longer than a year, 1, 2, 3 years later. That doesn't mean they might not date people in between. But is it really likely they're going to find somebody so suddenly, so quickly, that's long-term compatible? That's not likely. So when you hear these scare stories, your ex is going to meet somebody new at this party, at this get-together, at this event, at this place of work, at this college. What's the chances that it's going to last forever? I would say very, very unlikely. So if you're a dumpy and you're trying to get your ex back and you hear that your ex is speaking to somebody new, try to stay relaxed. Ultimately, you have no say in this anyway. You can't influence this other than making yourself a more attractive individual. However, if you're worried they're going to run off and get married, well, if they actually did that, they're probably going to get divorced sooner than you think. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about the biggest dumper myths. And myth number 3, is that your ex hates you. So during a breakup, emotions are running high. People say things which can be very hurtful. And one of the classic things that somebody may say to one another is, I hate you. I wish I'd never met you. I never want to see you again. Now, does this mean they really mean it? Well, I would say it's unlikely. Occasionally, somebody will say such a thing and they do truly mean it. But you will know in your heart if you've done something bad enough to create that level of emotion. You will know deep down if you've treated your ex in a way where they could hate you. And if you feel this way, if you accept this to yourself, then can you really blame them? But I would say most people will think, no, my ex has no reason to absolutely hate me. And if you feel that, and if you believe that, then it's likely to be true. And it doesn't really matter what they've actually said to you. They are unlikely to hate you. Also, people say that love is the opposite of indifference rather than hate. People often say that love and hate are actually quite close together. And the fact that if such emotions have been stirred by somebody who says this, they're actually a lot closer to you than you think. Now, I'm not going to say a blanket term of this means this or this means that, but what I would say is that it's very unlikely that your ex truly hates you. And if they do have that level of emotion, they probably are somewhat still feeling for you. If somebody is completely indifferent to you, that is when they have no emotion left. That is when they're going to be feeling like, I just don't really care. I don't care if I hear from them again. I don't care what they do. I'm not bothered. If somebody's got hate for you, or at least within their words, then there is passion, there is emotion. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody who says it is actually secretly in love with you, okay? Because sometimes, unfortunately, there might be good reason for their words. But at least there is emotion there. At least there is feeling there. At least there is something there. And that is often better than indifference. So if you hear that your ex hates you, if you've been told this, if you've heard from somebody saying, look, when a breakup takes place, your ex hates you, you'll never hear from them again. All I can say is I know of many, many people who've reconnected, many, many people that I've coached and got back together with their ex. And they certainly don't believe that their ex hated them forever because they're now back together. Feelings change. People live in the moment, speak in the moment, feel in the moment. What somebody says now is not what they meant 2 months ago, is not what they'll mean in 2 months' time. And it's even broader when we go further apart. A year ago, a year into the future, 2 years, 3 years. You can see what I'm saying here. So if your ex said, I hate you, I never want to see you again, this is how they feel in the moment. Will they keep to this? Possibly, but I would say most of the time, this is not how they're going to be feeling when the emotions settle down and they do view things from a safer position. It doesn't mean you'll get your ex back, but it's very unlikely that they'll actually feel the hate that you are worried that they do. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.